Hello, the name is Osvaldo Antonio Nyaka, and welcome to another mini episode where we explore human behavior, principles that you can take and apply, as well as use in any area of your life. So, today we're going to be talking about a concept called inferiority complex. There was about 3 weeks ago where I did a radio interview around inferiority complex. How does it come about? And what is it that we can do in better understanding it and also being able to overcome inferiority complex. There was a famous writer, his name is Frantz Fanon. And in his writing, there's a book that came out that he wrote. It's called Black Skin, White Mask. And in his work, he just studied how a simple thing such as the skin color can create a systematic inferiority complex within society. And his work was about studying how colonialism actually impacted those who were colonized by the greater powers. And he studied the psychology behind it, not from an individual point of view, but from a collective point of view, where you had a colonizer or a group of colonizers who colonized certain people, and because they colonized certain people, they imposed certain rules on the people that were colonized. And because of that, they went on to create biases and these misinterpretations that if you're not of a specific skin color, in this case being darker skinned compared to the whiter skinned, then you are subhuman. And in creating that system, then it created an inferiority complex for those who are not of that skin color. And this then created society in different levels, where you had the ones who were colonized trying to live up to the ones who colonized them. So it's sort of like looked as, if you want to be powerful and you've been judged to be someone who's subhuman, the only way for you to gain your control back and for you to become something of substance or something of power in society is to be as closely as possible to the so-called label of being human. So your label has been subhuman because of your skin tone, your skin color. Now you're trying to be the opposite of who you are in trying to sort of elevate yourself to become that skin color. And the only way that one could do that was in mannerism as well as in language. Now, language was one of the things that was then used to differentiate between who's closest to the ones that has colonized you versus how far off you are from the one who's been colonized, because you couldn't necessarily change your skin color. And in his work, he found that if you introduce an idea, and this idea that this is what superiority is, and if you're not of this idea of superiority, then you develop an inferiority complex. And throughout society, we saw that even leading up to today's time, where you had specific in-groups and out-groups in society, where one would speak a specific language better than another group of people and tell himself that he's much better than the people because he was closely related to what the given powers were at that time. Now, what's fascinating about his work is if you tie it in with Kohlberg's moral development, the 6 stages of moral development, which can then be further broken down into 3 steps, which is the preconditioned, the conditioned, and then the post-conditioned. And when you look at his work, you see that majority of the people were in the 2nd stage of the moral development, which is then the conditioned state, where we accept these biases as true. And because we accept these biases as being true, we then create a law behind it. And by creating the law behind it, the person who lives up to that law is seen as the person that is admired in society. Now, to break free from that, which is in the transcendent state, is you have to go to the post. You have to go to the post-conditioned. And going into the post-condition is what I love my work to be centered around, because post-conditional looks at things as first principles. First principles looks at unbiased perception, unbiased emotions that has to do with how human behavior works. And in the post-conditional state, you'll see that power is not based on what your skin tone is or what your skin color is. It's simply based on the fact that you're able to be authentic with yourself and express that authenticity. And in being able to express that authenticity is to be able to accept both sides of yourself. And the ones who express both sides of themselves and accept who they are able to express power. And once you're in the post-conditional and living by first principles, you realize that any rule in society that is created by suggestion, by repeatedly introducing an idea that society accepts as truth. Then you're able to control the narrative in society. So when you live by these first principles, not only do you overcome the the self-inferiority complex that's been imposed upon you, you go above it by understanding how you came to think yourself as being inferior. Now, in today's time, the best way to overcome this, again, remember, but Fanon's work focused on the collective consciousness. What I'm speaking about here is I'm not speaking from a collective consciousness point of view, but I'm speaking from a perspective of the self-consciousness point of view, the self. And in the self, I'm helping you to then transcend the different levels, because at the first level, the base level of Kohlberg's moral development, that's when you avoid punishment and seek rewards. And at the second level is when you're living according to the laws that have been established by the group. That's now when you're making things to be law. And at the transcendent level, which is in the post-conditional, is you're looking at things from the first principle. And the first principle states that the environment outside of you is a reflection of what's going on inside of you. So if you're able to extract who you truly are in the world, you're able to then be your most authentic self. And the best way that I found to unleash this is to understand human values. And human values are what we identify ourselves as. And within the human value structure, you'll find that you have got a hierarchy of these values. If I, for instance, have a high value on business, and my highest value is growing businesses, being an entrepreneur, and accumulating as much wealth as I can, and I identify myself as that, what I will then do is I will create morals and ethics that reflect that. I will tell you that, well, it's bad to be poor. And because it's bad to be poor, I'm going to create morals and ethics that sort of govern me and my society, or maybe the people that I lead, to lead them away from being poor. And now, because I'm living according to that hierarchy of values, I'm now being driven from the inside to create those morals and ethics. So morals and ethics are driven by the person who is in the most highest position of power, and that then becomes the laws that people live with and the ethics that people try to live up to. Now, if I understand that that's my highest values, and I meet somebody else, and this person's highest values perhaps going on holidays, taking trips, and perhaps what they most want to do is to take photos and travel the world, I can judge that person to be lazy and be like, no, you are wrong. I can even have this moral language around it to say that, well, what you're committing is a sin, because my morals and ethics are around making money and working. So I will respect someone who's doing that or who's mirroring that highest value. And I will put that person down. And in the process of putting that person down, I then create an inferiority complex on them, and I create a superiority complex on myself, because I'm saying my highest values are more important than yours, which is to go travel the world, take photos, and present that to the world. Whereas for me, my highest value is building businesses. So as soon as that person comes, I'll create this superiority complex, inferiority complex, and there'll be a clash, and I'll create these languages of, well, you should be working more, you should be doing this. And that's where the inferiority complex language starts to then come about, where I try to create laws around the fact that this person must work 8 or 10 hours a week. And if they don't do that, then I label them as being lazy. But then there's something else in that you're able to go past that and actually see how the two values are intertwined and how the one serves the other. Now, if I'm a person who's building a business, I can then ask myself is how is that person's traveling, taking photos around the world, helping me in my business endeavors? Perhaps it could be seen that not many people travel the world and not many people have a sense of what's going on around the world. I can then create a business around that and get that to serve people. And being able to create that, I'm then able to serve that person where that person is not able to travel more. I'm able to extract pictures of different places and I'm able to sell that and I create a market. So now you have two values that are serving each other. And you don't have this one value where one value is higher than the other value. And so therefore we're trying to create these false narratives that this one is more important than that one. And you see it now in social media where you have different types of narratives around what success is. I mean, if I tell you that success is this and you can't live up to that picture or that I'm painting as, you're going to then develop a inferiority complex because I'm telling you that you can't live up to that picture. An inferiority complex, and Fanon shows this in his work, it actually comes about when you introduce an image or something that a different person cannot live up to. And that's where we get this misperception or misconception about what success really looks like. I've never met anyone who's unsuccessful. Everyone is successful according to the hierarchy of values. And in the hierarchy of values is where they see the most success. Because it could be that because my hierarchy of values is in building businesses, that's where I see my highest success. I'll have the greatest order, organization, and the greatest creativity. But then ask me about spirituality, and spirituality is all the way lower down in my value structure. I won't be able to perhaps quote Bible verses or any scriptures that relate to that. So if that's the picture of success that I'm trying to live up to, then I'm going to develop an inferiority complex in that area. And the picture of success that society sometimes tends to put up are mislabeled because no one can actually live up to that. That truest form of success that I've seen is being able to identify your most authentic self, which is actually identifying your hierarchy of values and seeing where you're successful in your own hierarchy of values. And that's where your most authentic self, you will actually see that in your hierarchy of values, you'll see, okay, these are the areas where I'm not good in, but this is the area that I'm good in. And that's being able to integrate both sides of yourself. Now, if you actually want to take the next step is simply to go and do a DiMartini values determination process, which is a 13-step question. We could scientifically prove that once you do that, you'll uncover where your most authentic self is. And once you awaken your most authentic self, then you're able to then gain control over back of your life, because you're then able to self-determine what success looks like according to your own hierarchy of values, and not succumb to the different levels of the lower levels of Kohlberg's moral development, where you're trying to be an upstanding citizen according to the law because you want to be accepted. But instead, you're operating from a first principle. And a first principle, you'll see that no one is higher or lower, which is reflections of different parts of ourselves. And we need those different parts to complete the full picture and to get the full integration of these different pictures. And you'll start to see that no one is actually superior or inferior to anybody else, which is part of the same system that is interlinked, and it's all oneness that's just been expressed in different ways. And just remember that the true power doesn't lie without you, but the true power actually lies within yourself to transcend the different levels of these inferiority complexes. Once you transcend them, you get to understand on the first principle that the true truth actually comes from within, and your true authentic power is something that is developed from within. So thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you soon.